درود به مردم شریف ایران. من شهریار افشار هستم، میزبان شما در پالیتیکس 365. امروز خانم یاسمین انصاری به برنامه پیوسته. ایشون یک کاندید برای کنگره در دیستریکت سوم آریزونا هستش و ما خیلی خوشحالیم که این کاندید رو به برنامه شما به توجه شما رسوندیم و واقعا میخوایم با تمام کاندیدای ایرانی که فعالیت میکنن در زمینهای سیاسی آمریکا، نه تنها به مقام‌ها و فعالیت‌هایی که یاسمین رسونده برسونیم، اما واقعا تشویق کنیم تا اونجایی که میتونیم هر ایرانی، هر کسی که میتونه در زمینه سیاسی فعالیت کنه، رای بده، رجیستر بکنه، شهرداری، هر استانی، هر ایالتی که میتونین فعالیت بکنیم، واسه اینکه آینده بچه‌های ما واقعا وابسته است به موفقیت ما در زمینه‌های سیاسی که ما الان شاهدش هستیم. واقعا خوش آمدید نسیم برنامه ما. Thank you so much for joining us. I know we're going to switch back and forth with Farsi and English, but it's such a pleasure to have you. و واقعا میخواستم به دوستان بگم که تا اونجایی که میتونن از کاندیدیسی شما حمایت کنن. میتونی هر وبسایتی که میخوای دومین نیم و قشنگ توضیح بدی که ملت برن بیشتر آشنایی پیدا کنن به فعالیتی که داری میکنی و واقعا پالیسی هایی که میخوای به اون دیستریکت و اون منطقه آریزونا برسونی که مطمئنا ایرانی هم اونجا حتما زیادن. ما این برنامه بیشتر تو سادن کالیفرنیا پخش میشه. ایرانی ها خب میدونی که اینجا یه کم و بیش 500,000 شاید فقط سادن کالیفرنیا هستیم، اما تو ایالت های دیگه هم خوشبختانه هستیم. پس خوشحالیم که برنامه پیوستی. اگه لطف کنی یه کوچیک خودتو معرفی کن و میریم دوباره بقیه برنامه.
خیلی ممنون. من اسمم یاسمن انصاریه و hello, my name is Yassamin Ansari. Thank you so much, Shahriar, for having me on the show. Really excited. I am the proud daughter of two Iranian immigrants who, like many of us, they came to the United States during the revolution and are really, proud to be Americans and have made a positive impact in this country. Growing up, I have always been very interested in public service and civic engagement because at our dinner table, the conversation always revolved around issues of political importance and the importance of not taking democracy for granted. So I got involved personally at a very young age as a high school student, volunteering on campaigns and getting involved. Personally, I got involved with the Arizona Democratic Party. Of course, Iranian Americans have a wide variety of political beliefs, just like any other minority community. But for me, I am a Democrat. I later went to Stanford University. I studied international relations. I actually worked with Dr. Abbas Milani. He was my honors thesis advisor at Stanford. And I wrote my honors thesis on the subject of Iran's nuclear program. Later, after undergrad, I moved to New York City and I worked as a climate advisor at the United Nations. So a lot of my skill set and expertise is in climate and sustainability policy. I worked with cities and states and companies around the world on their transition to clean, renewable energy. And then throughout all of this, I've been very interested in the topic of getting more Iranian Americans involved in politics and civic engagement, because there's no question we are a very successful diaspora community. My parents' generation came here, put their heads down, worked really hard, and now have been so successful in everything from medicine to running some of the biggest tech companies in arts and culture, in engineering, truly across the board. However, when it comes to political representation, the reality is we really do not have a seat at the table, especially in Congress. And so for me, that's something I've been very passionate about. Through the years, I've supported other Iranian Americans who've run for office and tried to help them in any way. So I decided to move back home to Arizona in 2018 and get more politically involved here myself. Ultimately, I decided to run for the Phoenix City Council. Phoenix is the 5th largest and fastest growing city in the United States. So our city council races are very competitive. There's just 8 of us. And so we are representing 200,000 residents each. So I ran over the course of a year and a half, and this was during the COVID-19 pandemic. And when I won, I became the youngest woman ever elected to the Phoenix City Council and the first Iranian American elected to office in Arizona. So very historic, exciting. I'm very proud of that, but I'm more proud of the work that we did after that. In Phoenix, I led a lot of our work on passing our first climate plan, on transitioning to clean electric vehicles in our bus fleet, on expanding public transportation, making the city more walkable and bikeable. I've also done a lot of work on housing affordability and addressing homelessness, just like in Southern California and many other places in the country. Phoenix has been growing very quickly, and therefore we are seeing a lot more issues with homelessness and cost of living. And so I'm really proud of the work I did, both to create new emergency shelters to help that issue, but also to raise wages for working people who were struggling in this economy. And so last year, I voted to raise wages for our police officers, our firefighters, bus drivers, librarians, to make sure they can continue to afford living in the city of Phoenix. I also brought my Persian heritage to the forefront as a councilwoman. I held the first ever Nowruz celebration at Phoenix City Hall. And what I loved about it was that we decided to make it very inclusive, since Nowruz is not just celebrated by Iranians, but by Afghans and by Central Asians, and in some cases, places in India and Pakistan. And so we had, for 3 years, a huge Nowruz festival at City Hall in the heart of downtown Phoenix to bring a lot of visibility to communities that didn't have this kind of representation. And now I'm running for Congress, and we are just 2 months away from the election. And I'm proud to share that our recent polling shows that we are 11 points ahead in this race. I have just 2 other opponents, but I have outraised my opponents. We have outworked our opponents. We've put out comprehensive policy plans, and we're feeling really good, but we need all the support we can get from Iranian Americans around the United States, because we have to make sure we can get our message out there. We want to make sure we're on TV with our message. We want to make sure we have organizers knocking doors. We need to be mailing voters. So want to give a plug to please check out my website, which is yassaminforcongress.com. You can learn about my background and what I'm about. But the most important thing right now is donations to the campaign. And you can be anywhere in the United States. As long as you have a green card or a citizenship, you can donate to our campaign, which would be a huge help. And I know together we can get through the finish line.
Right. Repeat the website again.
It is yassaminforcongress.com. And I spell my name. There's different ways of spelling it.
Right.
I spell it Yassamin, and then Ansari is Ansari.
Right. Thank you so much. So wonderful to hear your story. Let me start at the beginning, because when you mentioned your parents, as as Iranian Americans, we always get encouraged to go be a doctor or a lawyer. Getting into public service is not typically what's encouraged, even though we have political opinions, right?
Yes.
So did your parents support your career path into public service?
Yeah, they've been very supportive. I mean, it's been, a journey. So I would say, when I went to undergrad, I think back when I was young, I remember them saying things like, oh, you can't really do anything with a political science degree or an international relations degree. I think they saw where I was passionate as I got older. And so they became supportive of that. And Stanford, had such a phenomenal program that they were supportive. I will say early on, I had the intention of maybe going to law school. And I think politics was always the dream, but I thought I would go to law school and get there eventually. And I started excelling in my career at the United Nations so quickly that it was tough to want to step away from that.
Right.
I had an incredible mentor who really took me under his wings, and so I moved up the ranks pretty quickly. I did get a master's degree from the UK, but also in international relations from the University of Cambridge. And then, I think my parents over time, especially my dad, has really recognized this gap that we have as Iranian Americans in the political realm. And he loves this little phrase of, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu.
You're on the menu, right?
And
Right.
It's very true. It sounds silly,
Right.
but it's true. And, when you look at everything from, during both administrations, it doesn't really matter what political party you're from, but during Trump, there was the Muslim ban, prevented
Right.
many of our family members from traveling here just because of the place on their birth certificate that they're born. There's even a tax domestically in Texas. There's constantly laws being proposed where if you were born in Iran or China, like bills that are saying that you can't even buy property. I mean, there are significant attacks on us as Iranian Americans in this country.
Right.
And it's not even about foreign policy towards Iran, but we need an advocate in Congress to defend our diaspora here in the United
Right.
States. So now they're all in.
Right. No, fantastic. No, I appreciate that. And sorry, I didn't mean to intrude. But our cultural experience is so much embedded in our upbringing as, as children of Iranians and depending on, if they were born there, they were born here. And that journey, that adjustment that they all made in 79, which was traumatic then and is still traumatic to a lot of families, right? So to see, their loved ones go in this path, which I applaud them for supporting you, and because look what you turned out to be. And you mentioned your city life as a former city staff at San Diego. I can tell you San Diego and Phoenix are sister cities in many ways. There's a lot of similarities there. And we've had Persian New Year celebrations for decades at San Diego City Hall. I've actually hosted many.
That's
so
awesome.
it's so great to hear that you've led the way in Phoenix. And it goes to another saying, which I'm sure your father is familiar with: all politics is local. So,
Yes.
to establish relationships and to be able to really see the relevance of politics locally to how it affects you, it starts at City Hall. I'm sorry, it always does. City
It
manager used to
does.
tell me, city administration is the closest layer of government to the people. So you've had this fantastic, I want to say, career learning experience of learning city administration, and now you have your eyes set on Congress, which I couldn't agree more. For the entire 40, 50 years that many of us have been here, we've only dreamt about having an advocate in Congress. There's many organizations tried to represent us in Washington, but it's not the same. Having a representative in Congress, I feel, is a national, if we can say, priority. We have to get a foot in, and there should be many, members across the country to join you eventually as colleagues, whether they're Iranian Americans, Iranians, Iranian adjacent, it doesn't matter. People that understand our cultural experience and our challenges as Iranian Americans, and to be able to separate the actions of the regime from the Iranians who are people that live here, that have huge economic impact here, from doctors and lawyers across the country. So your role is going to be critical, and I'm really glad to hear that you're some points ahead, and couldn't encourage more to donate and help you in your policies. How have you found, tell me a little bit about working with the Democratic Party. This program is nonpartisan, but I want to understand how congressional candidates work with the two big parties.
So I'm running in a very safe Democratic seat. So what that means is if I am successful in the primary, which is on July 30th, I will effectively become the next congresswoman from this district. The district is like heavily Democratic. So the Democratic Party actually stays out of the race because there's no Republican we're trying to beat down the line. It's all about, winning within. However, sometimes these primaries do get very ugly, unfortunately, very nasty. And something I wanted to highlight, because I think the audience would be interested. I was very disturbed to see that in our last debate, we just had a debate 2 weeks ago in the race, myself and the two other candidates, and one of them decided to start attacking a lot of my Iranian American donors to the campaign, and basically insinuating that, I'm supported by extremists and we can't trust her, and very xenophobic, and I responded as such and said, these are Iranian American donors who, despite whatever political party they're from, they're supporting me because I'm an Iranian American. There's no other hidden agenda going on. They want to see their community represented, because we never have been. And Paya put out a statement condemning these attacks. I got a lot of calls from people, both locally and nationally, but that is the main reason why right now fundraising is so important, because we anticipate these, like when you're in the lead, you get attacked. And so we're anticipating the attacks will get worse. coming after my family, coming after my heritage, etc. So if I could, issue a call to action to those listening, please support our campaign. We need all the support we can get. Tell your friends and family. And donations of any amount truly make a difference, whether it's $25 or $2,500. The max that each person can give is $3,300. But we have a real shot here. I mean, in my time involved in supporting Iranian American candidates, there's never been a race where we are the front runners and we have a legitimate shot at finally electing an Iranian American to Congress. So again, the website is yassaminforcongress.com, and I really hope that those listening will get online and support us.
Thank you for mentioning that. You're right. There's been many, many valiant attempts across the country. I think, in California, in Texas, I know, really anywhere that Iranians have taken root and built a life for themselves as Americans. The reason I think we keep that hyphenated, Iranian-American in our cultural identity is that we want to make sure our children and our community are aware of how proud we are of our cultural heritage. Many people, as Ronald Reagan used to say, you could go to China and you'll always be, you'll never be Chinese. You can go to India, you'll never be Indian, but you can come to America and you'll be American.
Exactly.
So good on you for standing up to some xenophobic, unfortunate comments that politics is an ugly, ugly business. I can tell it going back to parental guidance. That's why a lot of parents usher their kids away from politics, especially when your Iranian heritage or your Iranianness comes to bear. It's a difficult transition, but you're leading the way again. And I wish you nothing more than success and health and a speedy, really ascension to that very, very important role. Now, let's say you get elected. God willing, I really hope that'll be a dream come true, really, for all of us. You'll be a poster child of Iranian American success. We haven't made it until we're I feel, in Congress. No matter how many companies we start and how many Mercedes you want to drive, or how many doctors and lawyers you create in this country, until we have a seat at the table, as you put it, as your father put it, we're on the menu. And it's really such an important direction that you've taken. Hopefully, if you get elected, what do you feel your first, priorities are going to be as a member?
Given my background and some of my expertise, I'm very interested in serving on the Transportation and Infrastructure Subcommittee. So that's where I feel I can do a lot of work on bringing back investments to Phoenix, to my state. Phoenix is in a really exciting time right now because we've gotten a lot of investments from the bipartisan infrastructure bill. Semiconductors are being built here. We have huge foreign investment from the Taiwanese semiconductor company. And so it's an exciting time as we're growing, but we also want to make sure we're growing responsibly. So I want to really focus on the transition to clean energy, bringing high wage jobs to the community, and then just making sure no one gets left behind as we grow. So those are huge areas of interest. When it comes to issues of pertaining to Iranian Americans, I will say, not that this is, something that's legislative per se, but I very much look forward to having a seat at the table and bringing together a diverse coalition of Iranian Americans who can be reflective of our diaspora. I think we've historically had a hard time working together. And I think it's important if I'm going to speak as someone who's first generation American, it's inevitable if I'm elected that I will not be the go-to person who's asked when it comes to issues around Iran or Iranian Americans. And I want to make sure I'm well equipped to do that. So I'm looking forward to really creating, an advisory council and really consulting and engaging with our community to make sure that I'm, doing my due diligence and serving us with the respect that we deserve.
Right. Yeah, 100% right. I think that's an excellent game plan. And I'm sure, as you are aware, you're going to get a lot of calls for things that have nothing to do with your district.
Yeah.
Hey, well, we have a congressman, she'll get this done for us, even based on some of my political background, I used to get calls from friends and say, look, my visa is stuck or my passport needs a renewal. I go, okay, I'll connect you with the the community service rep in your local
Right.
congressman, and that person, or congresswoman, and that person can help you. So excellent game plan. Yasmin, really thank you so much for joining us, for doing what you're doing. Wish you great success. One more time, the domain name, so people know where to go to help.
It is yassaminforcongress.com. So YASSAMINFOR Congress.com.
Excellent. I wish you great success. See you soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.